What's up there, boys and girls? It is Monday, February 16th. We all have the Valentine's Day weekend hangovers. We're here.
President's Day.
Oh, and now it's President's Day. You know what was crazy? There was the Mesa Marathon and then the Lost Dutchman Marathon back-to-back days, which I don't remember ever happening. Being a runner, I don't remember that ever happening back-to-back days. It was crazy. But
Yeah.
anyway, we're not here to talk about running. We're here to talk to Carol Poore, who has a PhD and
Woo!
MBA. She's the president of Poore and Associates Strategic Planning. She's in strategic real estate. She served since 2011 on faculty of Arizona State University, has been a licensed realtor professional since 2018, is the author of business books. Her career includes executive leadership in corporate, higher education, nonprofit organizations. Her community service includes serving a number of civic and nonprofit boards, as well as the pro-profit bank or hospital boards. Right? That's why I was like, when I was like, oh, we have to have Carol on, I was trying to think of, I wanted to make a video that was really like proper, because it's like, I knew like she's got all this mad stuff behind her, which is really cool. And I know she wrote a book, because we talked about last year when it came out, and it went over everybody's head except hers, obviously, because she's super smart. She's wicked smart. Carol, just kind of, you filled up the stuff that Marco sent you. So Marco, where do you want to jump in? What do you want to start at with Carol?
Yeah. Well, thanks for being on the show, Carol.
Yes,
Oh my
absolutely.
gosh, my pleasure.
Excited to have you.
So with all these hats, MBA, PhD,
Hmm.
faculty at the ASU, why real estate? What
Right?
you know what I mean? Like, this is amazing. Your resume is just amazing, right?
Yeah.
To have a PhD is an accomplishment in itself.
How come we don't call you Doctor Poore? Like,
Well,
I didn't.
my
Okay.
students do.
All right. Cool. So I'm going to start
You
calling you Doctor.
you could.
All right,
Yeah,
here we
it's
go,
a
Doc.
pleasure to be on your show, and I've enjoyed all of the sessions I've been watching. Part of it comes with age and the stage of life that I'm in, but I grew up in a real estate family. My dad was quite entrepreneurial, a World War II veteran, came to Arizona
Nice.
from the East Coast once he returned back from serving in the Army, the Battle of the Bulge, all of that. And he got into real estate in the 50s, 50s, I would say early 50s,
Okay.
60s, 70s. He continued on until his very last days, and he passed
Wow.
at age 91. So my brother and I grew up in a real estate family. We have some land assets together. And I took a real estate class as part of my undergrad a long time ago. And it was very familiar to me because I used to answer my dad's phone when I was like
Yeah.
10 or 12 years old, and TV would be turned down in the background kind of thing. But it was it was very much of interest to me after serving in business, journalism, business, higher education, and nonprofit leadership to really dig into my own family's assets, my assets. And I took the class, got licensed. I really
Yeah.
enjoyed myself. And I put my license with a fabulous Brokers Hub Realty.
Yeah.
Very
We know
creative,
that.
very entrepreneurial group of very seasoned business people and brokers. And it just
Right.
felt like coming home. So then I got my broker's license. So I work very strategically, so to speak. I'm a strategist, and
Yeah.
I'm not trying to serve everyone at all times. But at my stage, I want to work with people that I know or refer me so that there's some sense of connection there. And that's kind of how I got started.
Awesome. Well, and it seems like from your resume and from just knowing you, you were a lifelong learner. Like,
Yeah, that's
just-
a good point, Marco.
You're just very curious. Nobody goes and gets their PhD just for fun, right?
Yes, they
You
do.
have-
Carol does.
You have to have that drive of wanting to know more, and that's pushing you. Do you get that same satisfaction from real estate?
Absolutely, I do. I believe that every single client and every single customer service experience in real estate gives you the opportunity to face a different situation, a new client, their personality, the dynamics, and it is a learning experience every step of the way. And one of the things I'm really proud of is that I'm able to take my background of inquiry and business common sense and strategic planning. Strategic planning has been a huge part of my background all the way from Salt River Project, when even Salt River Project would lend me out to work with organizations, so I'd be paid on SRP time to work with people like the Arizona Chamber of Commerce, the Greater Phoenix Chamber,
Right.
Tempe Leadership, all of these groups that really needed some strategic planning but didn't have the budget. So that kind kind of business expertise, I think, has given me the ability to walk into each situation with service mindset, a business mindset, a scheduled efficiency mindset. So it's added so much to my background. And yes, I am a lifelong learner.
So how does
Okay.
an agent, because when I hear the word strategic planning, I think of big corporations, really mapping out, you know, the project start all the way to the project end, who's going to be involved, et cetera, the budget, all those things. So how does a real estate agent who's basically a one-person business, how do you implement a strategic plan? I mean, what does that look like for an agent?
That's a
Before you
great
before
question.
before you answer that though, give us a little explanation of what strategic planning is, because that's a definition that's different for everybody.
Oh, I think that's both great questions. Strategic planning isn't project planning because that's more on the
Mm,
tactical level, right?
okay.
Strategic planning is looking at the next time horizon of what's meaningful for the organization. And for most organizations these days, it's 3 to 5 years because
Okay.
even in 3 years, things can change. Now, for pharmaceuticals, for example, it might be 12 to 18 months because of the rapidity of change. But
Mm,
strategic planning is looking at that time horizon, seeing what is externally happening. You've got to look external first before you look at your own belly button. And you look for those trends that can impact the industry, the business, and your specific company. And then you start to develop what are my own internal strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. And so there's some exercises and templates that I've used to customize processes for organizations, even small nonprofits. But it's looking externally, then looking internally, then developing 3 to 5 year goals, whatever that time frame is, and then developing an action plan and an operations plan for the next year. So that's where you get down to the projects and all of that. So it
mm,
really is a longer term plan that gets measured, tracked, and implemented at the annual fiscal year level. So for an individual, for me, I'm always looking at the trends. I love
mm,
trends in, healthcare, trends in whatever the topic is. And then starting to figure out what does it mean for me as an individual? Let's say it's a downturn, or let's say it's a hot market.
mm.
What does that mean for me? What are my goals for the next few years? And then what does it mean for me this year? What am I going to get done?
Yeah. So with the markets, how the markets have kind of been evolving, what, 3 years, right? Because we had the really good COVID years as far as real estate was concerned, and then it kind of slowed down. So when you look at that from a strategic planning standpoint, do your goals and targets change dramatically because the market's changed, or are you still grinding forward to what you set for, say, 3 years ago, and this is the third year of your 5-year plan?
Yes, great question. Yes, they are organizations and individuals have to be flexible. So as we see something change, or maybe there's an episodic crisis, like what we
Mm,
saw in the mortgage crisis of 2008, the great economic downturn,
Mm,
all of us have to figure out, okay, the goals that I had set for the next 2 to 3 years, and then what I'm going to get done this year, maybe something needs to change and change now. And to reassess, reevaluate. So strategic planning doesn't mean it's set in stone. It means it
right.
needs to be flexible, right? According to the market conditions. But
Okay.
one of the things individually, and we kind of talked about for this interview. I think one area of secret sauce for me and why at this time of life, and I won't say how old I am, but I'm proud of my age. I am in my sixth.
I
I
look
try to
it.
keep
You
myself.
look it. I mean, I'm
Oh,
55.
thank
I'm gonna
you.
be
yeah.
50. I'm gonna be 56 next month. Do I look 56?
Oh,
You see what I'm saying? I mean, that's the thing nowadays. 50 is the new 30. Because how we live, it's so much better. Because Marco looks 70, but that's just because he eats all those tacos and drinks so much tequila. You gotta you gotta lay off on the tequila, Marco.
my gosh. Well, one of the things I think strategically, though, that comes down to the personal level, which is what you're asking about, is, I wrote a book about more than 20 years ago called Building Your Career Portfolio. And it
Hmm.
really starts with developing a personal purpose.
Oh,
And that personal purpose is like the beacon of light that guides you along your
Yeah.
way. And the personal purpose can change over time too.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because research shows that only 1% of 1 out of 100 of all people ever even take the time to think about what their personal purpose is. And
wow.
why would you think that? Why do you think that statistic is
Fear,
so small?
fear.
Here,
Yeah.
yes,
I think a lot of people just don't know what they want, right? They
Yeah.
don't have that self-awareness. And I think that goes back to your point is probably one of the most important parts of that strategic planning is looking outside, right? Trying to be objective and
Yeah.
also being objective about your own personal life, right?
Well, there are
It's
many.
hard to, yeah, hard to be objective about yourself because we're our own worst critics, but it's hard to criticize yourself because you think everything you're doing is positive, right?
Absolutely.
You
There's
don't,
different
yeah.
reasons that people fail to or never even think about thinking about their personal purpose. One is fear of success, fear of failure. One is that sense that they have to keep the mantle of their family business on their
Mhm.
shoulders, even though
Yeah.
they're not passionate about the bakery or whatever it is, right?
Right.
And so there's so many different reasons, but one big reason is people think they have to wordsmith it perfectly, and this is one of the things that I've been able to help, teach my audiences is that, personal purpose, just like your strategic direction should be flexible. And most of the time it doesn't change like every year. For example, mine is to be a thought leader, helping others find and fulfill their purpose. Now
Hmm.
that's kind of big global. Being a thought
Right.
leader means I am learning all the time. You guys picked up on the lifelong learning part of
Life
my
resume.
purpose
Yeah. I
because
call it
I
a life
can't.
resume. Yeah. You have an
Yeah,
amazing life
right.
resume because you don't stop. You just continue
Yeah,
adding to the pieces of that.
and that's what keeps us young, whether we're in real estate or anything else. But I've developed these 7 questions that I shared with you, and you're gonna post
Yes.
on your
On
social
broker
media and
subpage.
website. But these I'm gonna say these questions because they're pivotal questions, and if you just take some time to use this worksheet, sit on your couch, turn the
Yeah.
TV off, and spend 15 to 20 minutes on this or longer, you're going to be among the 1% of people that ever contemplate what their purpose is. And then they
Mm.
can start aligning, you can start aligning various community service and your client base to helping
Yeah.
you achieve your purpose. So the
Okay.
first question is, how would you like to be remembered many years from now by those who knew you? That's kind of one of those, wow, what's my
Yeah.
legacy going to be?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
The
Yeah.
second one,
We had a thing in one of my journaling classes. We had to write our own obituary. Yeah. That was fun. I wish I
it
still
is
had
fun
mine.
and
I don't remember.
it's kind of sickening too. It's like, I don't want to think about that, right?
Well,
I don't
but it
want to
was,
think about
but it was from the approach of when you've done with your life, it's the same concept of your question. What do you want to remember for? And when we had to write our own obituary, it was that itself. It's like, this is the accomplishments this person's made in his life. And boom,
totally.
same
Totally.
concept.
And it's a profound question. It really is.
Yeah,
But in all
it is.
seriousness, it's a serious
Hmm.
question. But the
Hmm.
next one is, and I love this one. This is one of my favorite ones. What would you do now if there were no risk of failing?
Yeah, that's a deep question. Because,
Yeah.
and I want to go back, and I think it aligns well with this question. You said something that really I don't think people think about, but the fear of success. What is that? Like, because we all know what the fear of failure is, but what is the fear of success? And does it have to
Yeah.
align with this question that you have?
Yeah. And it totally aligns with real estate and anything we do in life. The fear of a success is a very human fear of what happens if I get that job?
Hmm.
Or what
And yeah,
happens if I get that listing and it's a luxury listing or it's something that I never thought would be even possible? What does that mean? Am I good enough to take that
right.
on? Am I smart enough? Am I wealthy enough? Am I, and what does it mean as far as work wise? What if I have to step it up a little bit and put in more
Mm,
hours or get up a little bit earlier? And we all face the fear of success and throughout our lives in different juncture points.
right.
I was working with a client yesterday, and I'm not going to say what she does, but and I'm
Drug
trying to
dealer.
think about how to follow up with her actually.
Okay.
But I showed a property, and afterwards, somebody came out from the property that I actually know and spoke with my client and me about the community. It was condo community. And afterwards, the client said, I don't know if I fit in here. I don't know if I'm
Mm.
smart enough and all this. And she has such an
Wow.
amazing position.
Mm,
I'm in my head, I'm going, this is the
Like, what are you
fear of
nuts?
success
mm.
preventing her from even thinking about making an offer. And so,
Interesting.
and as it turns out, she was anxious about it. And so she's not going to move forward at this time. but maybe she'll think about it. I didn't coach her, but that's an example of the fear of success.
Yeah.
And
Okay,
it really ties
here's a
in.
question on that. Could the fear of success also be that once you attain that success, what is it now that's driving you? Like that's your why, right? Like you
Yeah.
have something to attain. Like I need, if I can do this, then I know I've made it. And then once you reach that pinnacle, I think some of us will be like, okay, now what? Now what's my why now? What's driving me now? Because now I'm here. So subconsciously, you want to tear that down so then you can turn around and go build it back up. And you play this roller coaster game
Mm.
with your success and failures because in order to attain this, you have to know what you're going to do after you attain that. And I think a lot of people, myself included, over the years, you reach something and then realize, oh, I'm here. And then you forget how you got there. And then you slowly kind of fall down the mountain because you stop doing the things that got you there to begin with, right? Because that's still proactive
Mm.
once you're on the top of your game, whatever it may be. Would you agree with that?
I think so. I think there's a lot of
Doctor?
things that tie into the fear of success. And I also think it's easy, once we're at a certain place, that next level, whatever that is for us,
Yeah.
I think it's normal to stay there and get acquainted with that and feel
Hmm.
comfortable with that. But then there's always going to be the hope or the opportunity for the next level. So what is
Right.
that
Right.
next level? And
Right.
going through that whole fear of success, also relationships. For some
Mm,
people, that next step might be kind of isolating from the family setting or what I grew up with, and the
Yeah.
right.
rest of my brothers and sisters aren't at that level. Oh my goodness, there's so many psychological things about that. But I want to quickly cover the other ones.
Yeah.
Here's another question that's a really good one because it is very encouraging. Think of 2 times in recent years where you felt like you were making a difference. Now, I love this because I think we all are our own worst critics. I know I
Yes.
am. And I am so hard on myself. And in a way, that's good because I'm pushing myself, right? But
Sure.
in other times, I'm thinking, "Oh, man, this didn't happen or this, whatever." And when you look back and you try to remember 2 times, you might think of 5 times, 6 times,
Mm,
it makes you think, hey, I am a good person. I'm good hearted,
yeah.
or I am making a difference, or I
Yeah.
am bold and I am ambitious. And there's nothing wrong with that. And so the thinking of 2 times, it's kind of self reinforcing that, hey, no matter if I'm frustrated right now because I'm seeing that next pinnacle and I'm not sure
Hmm.
how I'm going to get there. I can look back and know that my life has made a difference.
Right.
It's
Right.
awesome.
Yeah, the next
Love
one
that.
is how can you immediately ensure you live your purpose each day with no regrets? And that
Wow.
keeps your purpose in front of you and that longer term, I don't want to look back and say, "Hey, I didn't
Right.
make good use of my time," but I
Yeah.
want to be purposeful. The next one is, do you see or sense apparent themes or patterns? Note them there. Note them here. And so that's important because as you start to work your way through these questions, you've got to have some resolution or culmination of what. So this helps anybody.
Here,
Hey,
here, here,
Yeah.
yeah, here's a question for you. So these are fantastic and insightful internal questions that I'm going to go through myself because I find them fascinating. But human nature is to find the easy answer,
mhm,
right? Like, and what is your purpose, Chris? Oh, to sell houses. Okay, that's stupid. That's lame. That's so minuscule on a grand scheme of things. So when you're doing this with people that you work with and you help guide and strategically, plan their worlds, how do you get them to just not give the initial vanilla boring answer that's so easy? Because you got to have the difficult answer, right? In order to achieve what you want, you just can't be complacent and say, "Oh,
right.
my purpose is to sell houses." Well, that's not really your purpose in life, man. That's what generates your income and it enables you to live your life. But is that truly your purpose? So how do you help people get around just the initial, I want to say knee jerk answer that's simple and just right in front
Well,
of them?
okay, Chris, why do you want to sell houses?
Mm,
Right.
yeah.
And then you say, oh, because I want a big house. Why do you want a big house? Right. And then we get really to the core, right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
want a big house to provide for my family.
That's
Keep on
that's
asking
called
that why.
the 5 whys. And
Okay.
that
Oh, okay.
that's a really great technique to say why, 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 why. I
Okay.
do believe though that these questions are so profound that most people, if they have a brain, they're not going to just write to sell houses. How do you want to be remembered years from now? Well, if you have children or you
Mm,
have people that you love in your life,
right.
you're not going to say to sell houses, right? You're going to say, I want to be
Right.
remembered as being kind and generous and blah, blah, blah. And so I think these questions do go above and beyond the tactical day to day, but they certainly relate to the day to day. For example, my
Right.
thought leader helping others find and fulfill their purpose. Well, even though I worked in the utility industry, I worked at Arizona State University as a vice provost. It wasn't related to my day to day work as much as being an inspiration, being a thought
Yeah.
leader, being a learner, right? Because
Hmm.
I can't be a thought leader if I'm not learning. I think that those questions do help us lift it up a bit. But then the idea of, do you see themes or patterns? For me,
Right.
the thought leadership jumped out when I did this. And it took me a long time because here's the thing, a personal purpose can be 3 pages of
Mm,
random, just thoughts. And if you see patterns, and another question, briefly summarize your thoughts. I believe the purpose of my life is to, and then the last question is, when will you find time to reflect and possibly refine your purpose? But I thought about it a long time on plane rides, etc. And I got mine down to a wordsmith sentence. But for some people, it might be a stream of thought paragraph.
Mhm.
But
right.
the fact is, with starting to think about this, you're doing more than 99% of the world's population ever does, and it will
Mm,
subconsciously direct your choices for your career path, your real estate path, your volunteer path, your lifelong learning path. And
mm,
it provides strategic direction, maybe not pristinely, but to continue my quick thought about my career. So, as I was, in utility industry, Arizona State University, helping to run a campus, CEO of a healthcare nonprofit. Throughout that, I did have a pretty clear sense of my purpose. And I applied that not only into my job and working as a leader, but also at home with my sons and with
mm,
other people in the community. So I think the purpose really is a guiding beacon, and it doesn't have to be wordsmith perfectly. That's the thing. A lot of
right.
people are worried. One of the fears is I have to wordsmith perfectly my
Mhm.
statement.
Yeah.
No, you don't. Put
Yeah.
it down in some bullet points if that works for you the best. But that's my part about, personal purpose. I hope it's
Yeah.
inspirational.
And
Yeah.
what I love about this is too is that I think that some of us get so focused on our careers that it becomes our identity. And with that exercise, we kind of start realizing, hey, you know what? Yeah, my career is important, but it's not my purpose in life, right?
Yes.
It's not my legacy. My kids, my philanthropic efforts. Those might be my actual purpose, and it kind of recalibrates what success looks like for everybody, right? If you
The
sold 20
things
houses, right? Who cares, right? In 1 year, you know?
one yes, yes, yes. And one of the questions you asked me, and this ties directly into what we're gonna talk about next, I hope, is, you asked, what is the one thing you do best that other agents could benefit from? Well, one of the things that I have done over my careers, and this is starting in my early 20s when I lived in Page, Arizona, a small
Yep.
That
7,000
is a small
population
town.
city on Lake Powell, getting 3 million visitors into the community every year. So it wasn't a podunk town, it was right on Lake
Mm,
Powell. But
yeah.
I served on the board of directors at age 21 of the Page
Wow.
Lake Powell Chamber of Commerce. And I was serving with people in their 50s and 60s, and they owned the Waui Lodge and Marina, right? So I was really rubbing elbows. But one of the things I do best, and this is humbly speaking because I put in the work,
Yeah.
is building social capital.
That's what, thank you. Thank you. Because I was going to ask you talk about expand and building social capital because I find that little
Mhm.
sentence very fascinating. So,
Yes. So social capital and downtown Phoenix development was my dissertation, my dissertation.
okay.
Mm,
And so I spent 7 years attending meetings, getting involved with
Mm,
Downtown Voices Coalition and
okay.
city. I've been involved with City of Phoenix for a long time, but really to understand how social capital has driven downtown change. So that's a whole nother conversation.
Well,
But
I'm sure.
building, social capital is very simply vital networks that matter. And so,
mm,
for me, it's been vital professional and community networks
Hmm.
through very purpose driven community engagement that adds wisdom and value to my business as a real estate broker. And so I started in my 20s. Now, anybody could start at any time, but I started in my 20s serving on a board of directors and for a small local chamber of commerce, came back to Phoenix, jumped in the Fiesta Bowl committee, was one of the top fundraisers. So I've had these various community engagement, very joyful experiences, most of them. And so I think that when we're in a business like real estate, we have to expand beyond our
Yeah.
family and immediate circle of friends, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And to your point, so I'm on the board of directors for the Phoenix Association of Realtors. I'm on the grievance committee. Well, I was.
Really.
I'm no longer on it. I'm on these other site committees and everything. And not only do I want to be involved because I just love real estate and want to get, just more involved, but my thinking was, okay, how can I compete? Because I'm fairly new. This is my 5th year. How can I compete with the Nicholas Yales of the world?
Right.
Right?
Because he's a hard
Because
person to compete
well,
against
well,
like with.
well, I don't have the experience. I don't, and I can't get that back. Time I can never get back.
And understand, Marco, Nicholas Yale's a unicorn in the real estate
Yes,
world
yes.
because
Quote,
I'm 27 years doing this and I have never come across somebody who does what he does to the level that he does and the consistency in which he does it. He's coming on the show, but it's a future episode because he and I have been
yeah,
talking about it for quite a while now. And when he comes on the show, it'll probably be like a 6-part because everything
he-
seriously,
yeah,
for all of you on here that watch this, if you've never really just sat down and listened to him or watched him do what he does, it's amazing. And I've been,
yeah,
again, 27 years and I've been about 6 different brokerages. So I've been around a lot of different brokers and
right,
agents. And Nick just, I mean, sitting next to him now, it's just, it's mind
yeah.
boggling. It's mind boggling. I mean, his impact on this industry is by far probably the most I've seen any one human individual do. So
Well, okay, I'm going to
if
jump in here and
okay,
also
okay.
add my kudos to Mr. Nick
Yeah,
Yale. I've been in marketing, overseeing
right.
marketing departments and serving at the CEO level. And when I met Nick, I saw immediately a creative business.
Yeah,
And it comes
amazing.
from years of wisdom, but it also comes from what is within and some natural intuition too, and his creativity. And
Yeah.
that's why I was so excited to join Brokers Hub and that he let me in as a new real estate agent and now a broker. But Nick's creativity is expansive. He's a lifelong learner too, which is right simpatico with
Right.
me too. So all that said, I think the answer, Marco, to your question is to not try to compete with anybody else. Your
That's where I
own
was going with that
genius.
too.
Right.
Your own genius.
Yeah.
We all have people that will be smarter, prettier, handsomer, better in some areas than we are, right? So we've
Right.
got to carve out our own uniqueness. And I will add on that, I've got a 5-way test for volunteerism and community engagement, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute.
Okay.
But I think that based on our life stages and all, we can only do so much at certain times. But I think that
Mm,
you're involved with a professional association, okay?
hmm.
You're not involved with a community nonprofit or a
Right.
different kind of business board. You're right now involved in a very important high level. You're going to learn
Right.
so much. I'm sure you already have
Yeah.
by being involved with your professional association. And I think in my career, I've been very active in several. One is the International Association of Business Communicators when I was a PR
Mm,
person. And I'm still a lifelong member because I made a
yeah.
huge donation when they were almost going under as an international association. So I spent, a couple $1,000 and now I'm a lifelong member of it. But they're lifelong learners. Another one is the International Association of Strategy Professionals. And of course, I'm involved with the, Real Estate Phoenix Association of Realtors.
Mhm.
But for me, a lot of my learning has also come from community engagement, and that's being on nonprofit boards
Right.
as well as currently on the Abrazo boards as a governing board. I've been on it
Oh
for
yeah.
about 12 years. And every year I reevaluate, should I continue on? But there's so much going on in healthcare.
What and hold on one second, because what I'm hearing here that I want to make sure people don't miss this. Everything that you're involved in is not just specifically related to real estate.
Mhm.
Correct.
Because I think
Correct.
being on the board is really great. Like that's clout for Marco and for you to say, hey, I'm on the Phoenix Association of Realtors board.
Totally.
You're not going to generate business from that. You're not going to generate referral business from that, but it does
Right.
give you clout because you're 5 years as a realtor and you have the ability to tell people if it comes up in conversation, because I don't know how that would come up. Hey, I'm part of the Phoenix Association of Realtors board. So that gives you some type of validity, I think, as far as ownership of who you are, because to get to that, in my head, if I'm a normal consumer and I hear that, oh, Marco's on the Phoenix Association board, for realtors as a board member, like, wow, that's pretty legit. He's got to know what he's doing, right? He's got to have some clout
Yeah.
behind him to achieve that. I
It's a
think to Carol's
huge
right,
prestige.
right.
It is.
To Carol's point, I think the other community related stuff, like what you do with the schools, Marco,
Mhm.
that gives you credibility. That gives you your line of sight, your top of mind. You're the popcorn guy. Those things will carry more weight, I think, as far as the community engagement, garnering referral business, repeat business, things like that, because you're at their level. Because
Mhm.
sometimes people will think, oh, I'm on a board. Like I was on the board for a couple different things, and you kind of get that, oh, you're on the board. Okay, shut
Right.
up. It's not like that. You know, I mean, my board's tied to homelessness and things like that, but
Yeah.
still, it's kind of like, oh,
Yeah.
I can't really talk around you because I'm on the board. Yeah, yes, you can, because I'm a board member for the people.
Yeah.
I'm not a board
Yes.
member to be the stoic guy in the
Right.
back corner.
Right.
But
Yes. All
follow
of
me. Does
that.
that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of the clients, like your school involvement, Marco, and your homeless and housing involvement, Chris, there it's building a network of
Right.
community leaders that you would normally never rub elbows
Hmm.
with, right?
Right.
And that's the most important thing. A lot of us feel like we have to be tied to our job, ball and
Right.
Yeah.
chain. And I'm talking about corporate people, right? Because I was
Mhm.
in that environment where I saw people coming to Monday morning. Oh, I got to go up the elevator to my desk. And it's
Right.
like, oh my gosh, you people, life is too precious. We've got to be joyful about
Mhm.
what we're doing.
Mhm.
And
Right.
even if we do have a great corporate job that we need to stay in, or we're going through a difficult time in real estate, sometimes these community activities and community investments can bring joy and a different perspective to help lift you up in all
Yeah.
areas.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some once a year or twice a year, I go to like a conference or like a workshop that is completely not real estate related. Like last year, I went to like a graphic design workshop.
Oh,
I was the only
nice.
one that wasn't a graphic designer. But my thinking was, how do these people create their business and market their business, and how I might be able to implement that into my
Corporate.
own business,
Yeah. That's
right?
cool.
Completely like not real estate related, but they
Yeah.
might be doing something that's isn't being done in real estate,
Exactly.
And so I love that you're like an octopus, right? You have everywhere, a little bit of everything, and you're able to bring it back if you need to your own personal life and business life.
Well, that's interesting, the octopus
Yeah.
analogy, and I wouldn't disagree. And I also think it's building blocks. I'm trying to
Mm.
build on everything that I have learned and some of the wisdom throughout these different experiences to apply it to now and in the future. As a matter of fact, in one thing I want to mention, which is very true for me, in my social capital research with the downtown dissertation, I stumbled across a scholar. His name is Mark Granovetter, very well known in the social capital world, that talks about the power, the strength of weak ties. What does that mean?
Oh,
That
tell us.
this is the coolest thing. And when I read this, I thought, oh, this is me. So I tend to be a person that knows a lot of people, knows how to
Mhm.
connect people. And it's because of all these different experiences and my community service. There are people that have a close, very close, tight circle with their own family and maybe two or three good friends. There's nothing wrong with that. We all
Right.
need a couple of good friends, right? But
Hmm.
in this business of real estate, we need the power of weak ties. That means we know we serve on these boards. They know us. We know them. We're rubbing shoulders with people that we would never normally come in contact with, whether it's, your political active, supporting candidates, or it's boards or for-profit boards or community service at the volunteer ground level. You're meeting people and developing these weak ties so that when someone thinks of having a credible real estate broker, that they think of you
Yeah.
because you have authentically served. And when I saw that power of weak
Oh,
ties,
I
they are
like
the
that.
most,
I like
Yeah.
that statement. Authentically served. I like
yes.
that. That's
And
cool.
because they know you, you're not their best
Yeah.
buddy, you're not their best
No.
friend,
No.
but you have a network of these weak ties. Doesn't mean a bad thing like, oh, it's weak.
Right.
It
Right.
means that you have enough association. They're not going to be your family or your two or three
Yeah.
best friends. They're going to be a huge network for you that tells
Mm.
other people.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
cool. I love that.
That is a really, really awesome concept.
Yeah.
Yes, I loved it.
Yeah.
I mean, when I thought that describes me. That's why I'm a connector. That's why I
Mm,
know so many different people because I've actually put in the time
yeah.
and not just, show up. This is the thing about community service and volunteerism. If you show up and you're a flakerama, you don't deliver on what you promised, right? These
Yeah.
people, they just want to have
Hmm.
their name on a resume. They're
Yep.
not there to serve. So you've got to be really credible there. But I do have a five-way test to figure out volunteerism and if it aligns with your purpose. Do we
Nice.
want to talk about that?
Before you go there, I want to point this out. So I've been listening to the book from Jeremy's episode about the let them theory.
Yes.
And for those of you who haven't listened to that, there's a little nugget in there that I just got to, which ties in perfectly with what Carol's talking about. If you go into a coffee shop every day and you've never approached anybody, right? You're missing so many opportunities to connect. So what the author did, she ended up going to a coffee shop and she introduced herself to somebody and said, I see you here every day. This is who I am. This is what I do. And by doing so, she'd open up her phone when she sat down to have her coffee. And she's like, okay, Carol Poore, author, PhD, blonde lady, is here every morning at 7. And the next day she goes in and she sees Marco there, who's been there every day for the last year since people. So she goes in and she introduces herself to Marco. Same thing. So what she was explaining in this part of the book is that's her creating a community within this coffee shop. And by doing so, she realized there was a couple different people in there that completely would have aligned with what she was doing from a business standpoint that would have helped elevate her business to the next level. But because she was so fearful of walking in head down, I'm not going to talk to anybody. But by doing so, she created this community. So what Carol just said, I think that can amplify that statement in a way for all of us. I really thought I should start going to a coffee shop once a week just to have coffee
Yeah.
because of because I have no fear of walking up to a complete stranger, right? That's just who I am. But to create a community like that in an organic, non-threatening way, and she's like, look, some people may just say, look at you like, yeah, whatever, dude. But then other people are going to open up to you and have a conversation. Then all of a sudden, there's another person, there's another person, there's another person, and in a world where you can't get past cell phones and text messages and doorbells, it's another organic way to start getting yourself out there to what Carol's talking about, creating those points of contact and
And
building
and
another community.
and I think, Chris, to your point, it's almost like the thought that comes to mind is like anti-revolutionary in the sense
Mm,
that we have this revolution of technology happening right before our
right,
eyes, right? And so for you to go up to somebody and to
right,
connect with them, it's out of the norm, right?
right.
Because it's out of the norm, it's going to make a bigger impact. The norm is just you going, getting your coffee on your
This is the
Instagram.
norm.
This is the
This is
norm.
this is
And
the norm.
so you by you going up to that person and talking to them, it's like you're disrupting the universe within that
Hmm.
coffee shop, right? Like, whoa,
Yeah,
what is this guy doing? Why is he saying hi to me? And
yeah.
that makes it even more impactful because it's memorable.
It's
Carol.
sad that we have gotten to this stage that,
Right.
people are looking down rather than up,
Mhm.
right? Down at their phones rather than up at each other.
Yeah,
But
but that's the world.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But that let them the Mel Robbins let them. It is a
Mm.
profound book. And the great thing about it is if we're reaching out to others and they shut down, they don't want to talk, or you're not their tribe, or
Let
they-
them.
you're too ambitious or whatever, let
Right.
them.
Yeah.
And let me continue to
Hmm.
be the creative,
Right.
ambitious person that I am,
Right.
right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but where to start? And
Yeah.
and so if someone's out there and they really do want to increase their social capital and they want to
Mm.
do it by focused volunteerism,
Right.
I wrote about
Mm.
this years ago and it's still true today.
Okay.
There, for me, are five key ways to figure out, how to plug in. And so,
Okay.
first one, does the cause support or align with your personal purpose? So, now everything in life doesn't have to pristinely align with your personal purpose. But if you
Right.
have done the seven questions, you've come up with a few phrases or key bullet points about yourself that you think are
Hmm.
purposeful for you,
Yeah.
then you can start to figure out, what am I passionate about? Topic wise, is it child abuse prevention? Is it
Mm.
animal shelter? Is it the homeless and housing? And
Mm.
how does that align with my purpose? And start to research organizations that do this kind of thing in your community, and then begin to figure out who's involved, who's the executive director or CEO. Could I get an appointment over there to go see? So first of all, does the cause support and align with your purpose? So you're not out there just doing random things. Second of all, does your experience add value to the organization? Whether you're a CFO or in the past, or financial or accounting or PR, or a leader at the executive level, what experience do you have? Can you bring to the table? And as a realtor or as a licensed broker, certainly you have great skills about real estate and
Yeah.
investments and community development, right?
Right.
Third, your ability to contribute. Do you have, let's go back to the experience. Does the experience, I need to correct myself. Does the experience give me opportunity to learn? That's the experience part. Next
Okay.
is your ability to, okay, so second is, does the experience give you opportunities to grow and learn? This is the
Okay.
growing and learning part of, what are you going to learn from this? The
Yeah.
third is, do you have the ability to contribute? And that's your skills, and how can you plug in to add value to the organization? Fourth is there opportunity to gain recognition? Now, that gaining recognition by serving your community is not selfish. It's not a bad
No.
thing. If you're spending hours and hours and you happen to have a newspaper article or photograph of you serving for this
Right.
organization or receiving an award, that's a good thing, right?
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
it shines on you and your business. And then finally, your schedule. If you have young children, you're not going to be able to be out every single night. Maybe the board or the organization has nighttime activities, or maybe
Right.
it's during the day when you're still building your career and you can't get out during the day. So your schedule and the stage of life that you're in. So those are my 5. I can send those to you too if that would be helpful.
This is
Yeah.
amazing.
But I'm a big believer in serving on boards, like leaders, like real estate
Yeah.
agents and brokers. They're leaders. So
Yeah.
I'm big on board service, and there are certain ways to get on a board. But
Right.
I think the 5-way test is a real good start.
How do you manage being on so many boards? Because you wrote in here, just be careful about not spreading yourself too thin, right?
Right.
Because I just off the top of my head, I'm like, oh, I would love to be on this board. I'd love to be on that board. I'd love to, be involved in all these things. But knowing my schedule, especially with my kid heavily in soccer, it's like, oh my gosh,
Have
how?
balance.
Yeah,
You
you
got
have.
to have balance. You got to have body, being, balance, and business. So you got to figure out, you got to take care of your body. You got to take care of your spirituality. You got to take care of your business, and you got to balance all that together in order to make what she does
Mhm.
worth it.
So Carol? How do
Yeah.
you?
Yeah. And I don't think there's a perfect formula for anyone.
Mhm.
And I think that we all get to a place where we realize, I'm overloaded doing my dishes anymore. I'm not cleaning my house because I'm out all the time with everybody, right?
Right.
So I mean, it's one of those things. We're human. We sometimes find that we need to cut back. But you did ask, what pitfalls, mistakes, or time wasters have you learned to steer clear of? And with the topic of community service, the first one that comes to mind for me is not aligning the community service with personal purpose or what you're truly passionate about. And I find that if I find something that I'm really passionate about and I'm
Right.
serving, and I'm a big believer, like I said, about board service, because that's leadership development as opposed to, for me, you know, s- serving meals at the meal shelter place. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a
Yeah.
great thing. It might be great for someone else. It's not for me.
Hmm.
Okay.
Right.
Because
Right.
I like business and strategy. So the board
Sure.
level really works for me. But
Right.
after a certain period of time, I might get burnt out on that, or it's enough. I need to move
Mm.
on. And I'm a big believer in, if you're the CFO of an organization and they put you as the board treasurer and you're on there for 30 years,
Right.
unless you really want to be there for 30 years, my
Yeah.
suggestion is you
Uh,
serve for a few years and maybe
yeah.
shift to something else or
Yeah.
move to
Yeah.
a different board, right? So you
So
could
don't
be
don't
like,
that- don't stay at something just because you feel you're obligated to stay. Oh, stay as long as you're passionate about that in that organization
yes,
you're involved with. Once that passion kind of starts slipping away, that's your key. It's not a bad thing to step away and find something else to replace it, because you don't want to just all of a sudden start going through those motions and just being there is a figure who sits in a chair and says, I, nay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you can become oversaturated in your own area of expertise that you're not
Hmm.
learning anything. Again, going back to the learning. The
Yeah.
second one is being too overloaded with community commitments. And that can happen quite
Yeah.
because the more successful you are serving the community, the more you're going to get called, believe me.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Right.
so sometimes we do get overloaded. We have to step back, put some boundaries around it. Maybe if there's a weekly Zoom meeting, you're not always
Mm,
on camera, or maybe you just skip a few and just tell the
right.
people that you can't make it this week because you've got
Right.
meetings. We talked about staying in the same community service too long. Know when it's time to make a change, and that means you're not joyful about it, or you're not learning, or it's just
Right.
becoming too much. And then not okay, here's a big one, and it's the
Okay.
last one that comes to mind for me. Not strategically leveraging or applying your contacts and connections to your real estate business.
Oh,
Now, we all know that we can't just join a board or be involved with community service with the sole focus of promoting your real estate business.
Right.
Nobody is up for that. Nobody wants to hear that. It's like everybody knows a million realtors. No, you want to get in there and be valuable, be of
Right.
value and of service, and get to know people on a very friendly high level way, and then
Yeah.
to prove your credibility. But then at some point, you need to include these people on your holiday mailings or your
Yeah.
marketing mailings just as market information, not to push yourself.
Right.
But hey,
right.
once you know somebody and you've
Mm,
developed a relationship, you should leverage it if you can.
yeah. Agreed.
Yeah, because in any situation, the first question most people say is like, so what do you do?
Hmm.
Right. And so
Yeah.
right away they're gonna know you're in real estate. So it's not like you need to have something tattooed on your I'm a real estate agent, right?
Hmm.
Like that's
Exactly.
gonna come naturally. That's kind of just the natural way that conversations go, you know?
But why do you think most people, this is a profound question. Simple though. Simple
Hmm.
answer. You're not going to get it, I bet. I bet you
Let me
guys aren't
try.
going to
I
get
think. I
this
think I know.
answer.
I
Okay.
think I know where you're going with this. So try me.
Okay. We'll see.
Okay.
So, why do most people volunteer?
For me, I do it. I do it because it fills my soul. But I think most people volunteer because they want to make themselves look good in the eyes of others.
Well, those are two good answers. And
Okay.
one is
Smart.
very altruistic, but they're not the answer. Why do
Okay.
most people volunteer? I'll give you a couple more tries and then I'll tell
Okay.
you.
Guilt. Guilt. Okay.
I would say people volunteer probably I feel like they feel like some sort of pressure, societal pressure, maybe to give back to the community in some way.
That's a good answer. It's not the number one reason.
Okay.
Right.
What is it?
Are you
What
ready
is
for me to
Jeopardy?
tell you? Okay.
We are.
Yeah.
We
All
are.
right. Usually it takes a while in the audience, and then finally somebody gets it. It's because somebody asked them to.
It was right there. It was right there, right in front of
Right?
us.
Right? And there's
Wow.
nothing wrong with walking in the walkathon because Aunt
Wow.
Matilda asked you, right? Here's the thing, as a licensed real estate broker or
Hmm.
agent,
Yeah.
Um, you can be out having chicken and chocolate cake with people every night of the week because Aunt Matilda asked you to do this, and Bob
Right.
asked you to do that, and Sherry asked you to do this, or whatever.
Hmm.
There's nothing
Right.
wrong with that. But does it align with your personal purpose? And does it expand your social capital in the way that is meaningful to you purposefully as well
Right.
as your business?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. There you go.
Yes.
Well.
So
So
get
Yeah.
see.
back being strategic about this.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah. Wow.
Strategic
Okay.
volunteering so that it enhances your career, it supports your purpose, and it really allows you to make a difference as opposed to just showing up somewhere because somebody asked you to. And again, there's nothing wrong with
Mm.
that. But if
Right.
that's what you're doing for your community service, it might not, I'm suggesting, it might
Right.
not be aligned with who you really are.
It's full circle. I mean, everything you're
Yeah.
talking about is like it always comes back to that purpose, right?
Yep.
And
Yes.
and it's you know, here's the thing, Carol. You probably read this. Start with Why, Simon Sinek, right?
Yes.
And when you said that you wrote that book 20 years ago, I'm like, oh my
Mhm.
gosh, she was ahead of that guy. You know,
There it is. I was going to ask you, how many books have you written?
Free. And to be quite frank, I get the question. This is building a career portfolio, and it was not about going and getting a job or writing a resume, but how to create a portfolio of career investments,
Okay.
volunteerism, community service being one of them. The other is leadership in the metaverse.
Yeah.
Three, yes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I if I were to title it again, it might be leadership in AI. AI is really taking a front seat, but the metaverse is simply a more immersive internet. And
Right.
so, with the competition of what's out there and people looking at their phones, how do you be
Yeah.
a great leader? And
Right.
then the one is strategic impact, a leader's 3-step framework for the customized
Mm.
vital strategic plan. And I wrote this
Mm.
over 2020. People will ask me, what's the process of writing a book? Well, first, you have to have an idea and you
Right.
have to look at the market to see has this already been written about?
Right.
Maybe not. Like my career portfolio, there were a lot of how to go get a job books, but nothing about career investments. Then you
Gotcha.
outline it, and then you always go through that initial phase of excitement, and then you get into writing it, and you look at your
Mhm.
first draft, you're thinking you're so excited, and you go, "Oh my gosh, this is
Mhm.
awful. Nobody's gonna wanna read this book. This is expletive, expletive." And
Right.
then you have to shore yourself up, and it's helpful to have a focus group circle around you too to help provide a sounding board. But
Right.
it's quite a process of writing a book. But I don't know if I have a next book. I'm not sure yet. But I
Yeah.
try to integrate this into community outreach. And my hope is to leave a legacy that encourages and inspires others. Well, I think I've hit on most of the topics as far as how to create a social network, a
Yeah.
social capital beyond and above our best friends and our
Mhm.
family and our brokerage friends, of course.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I
And
think everything that you've talked about is there's so much wisdom and you just can just the way you talk about it, you just know that you've been in the trenches.
passion.
You've seen it, you've worked with different organizations, you know what it takes. And for you to come back to that, always find your purpose, I think is so inspiring and it's also so powerful
Yeah.
because like you said, I think a lot of us, we just go through life probably not really knowing what our purpose is, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Well, it's not a perfect formula for everybody, and even myself included, because you get to a new stage of life where all of a sudden certain doors are closing,
Right.
but certain
mm,
ones are opening. And I think this is a huge key. And I from my own personal experience, sometimes a door will slam shut all of a sudden. You're going, "What? What just
Yeah.
happened here?" Right?
mm,
And this idea of driven by purpose, revisiting it,
Mm.
refining it if needed, to continue to push you along and be a driving force. And the other is the social capital part of it. As we age, and we all want to age well, we want to be healthy, we want to be fit in the best condition we can be. There's opportunity to meet new friends.
Mhm.
And I was
mhm.
listening to a podcast the other day for this 90-year-old woman, and her daughter was filming it. And she was talking about, a few of her regrets. And I always love listening to older wisdom. I think
Yeah.
every generation needs it. I don't care how
Yes.
young
Agreed.
whippersnapper
Agreed.
you think you are, right?
Uh-huh.
But I was listening to this and she said, I wished I would have made and built more of a friendship network and expanded my network because as I got older, people were dying off. And we all need a social network, social capital that includes young people, younger than us, older people our
Yeah.
own age, people in different community
Mm.
groups and backgrounds. It enriches our life. And I think it does prepare us to go through these different stages.
And especially in a world where we're heading into where those connections are more meaningful if they're in person rather than they're
Right.
online.
Right. There
Yeah.
you go. Well, she was Carol Poore. That was fantastic. This is why I wanted you to come on this because I
Amazing,
knew that
Carol.
you were going to have some amazing insight. And I didn't know half the stuff that you shared with us, which is fantastic. So that's the other part of elevating your voice is getting to know those that are around us because everybody has something to share, whether you realize it or not. So when Marco and I come calling on you to come on the show, you just have to say yes. That's all there's.
Yes.
Well,
Thank you.
my,
Yeah, we appreciate
my
no
pleasure.
time.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
Thank you guys.
yeah.
All right.
Everybody have a great rest of your day. Everything will drop tomorrow on the broker's page. See ya.
See ya.